What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, if you like content like this and you want to be able to find out more tips, tricks, tutorials, keynotes, career coaching, and things like that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell down there so you find out about the latest things whenever those come out. Now, today, I want to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that I see in resumes and portfolios. I review these all the time. I have looked at hundreds, if not thousands of them over the course of my career. And the thing that I've discovered is so many people make the same mistakes. It's actually so bad that I have a cheat sheet that I start with of what are the most common things that I see so often. I've already got it written up because I found I was just writing the same thing over and over again. So for me, it was like, okay, well, great. Let's write it really well once and start with that as a basis and then be able to just share that with people. But here's the thing, right, is I don't want you to make those mistakes. I don't want you to be able to maybe inadvertently really hurt your career. So that's what we're going to get into today, is we're going to talk about whether it's your resume, your LinkedIn, your portfolio, making sure you don't make some of these mistakes. Let's get into it. So as we start to talk about this, what I want to start with is the basics, because there are a few things. I don't care if it's your resume, your portfolio, LinkedIn. They're just some fundamental things that you need to make sure that you're doing whenever you're putting this stuff together. The first one, it's going to sound so simple, yet I see so many people struggle with it, is to just don't be generic. Whenever you hear me talk about building your personal brand, go back and listen to episodes 6 through 9 of the podcast. This is what they were dedicated to. Was how do you build your brand? How do you understand what makes you different? And that's what I mean by a brand. I don't mean what typeface or have a logo. I mean, what do you want out of your career? What are the things that you're really good at? What sets you apart? Because what I don't want to see is I don't want you to just simply accept what the industry gives you. I want you to be able to say, look, this is what I'm good at. This is what I want to be a part of. This is what I can bring to your team. And I know whenever you do that, it feels like, well, you know what? Maybe not everybody's going to love me. Not everybody's going to really relate to that. And I would say that's fine. Because just like any brand, not everybody's going to love you. But what you do want is the people who really do love that. The people who really do want that. Man, they're really going to seek that out. But that's the problem, is whenever you're generic, again, just like any brand, when you appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. So it really is about, again, being clear about what are these sort of things. How do you actually make this stuff really work? So that whenever people come to this, because this is your first introduction. Don't assume you're going to get an interview. Don't assume that people are going to actually talk to you. And whenever you do this stuff, you need to make sure that you pull people in. This is pretty much advertising. And again, any generic advertising doesn't work. Now, for the next one, the other mistake that I see a lot is that whenever you're generic, the thing that a lot of people will do is, since they aren't clear about who they aren't clear about what they want, the problem that they do is they will just talk about where they worked. They just talk about only their projects or maybe where they went to school. And we'll get back into that in a bit more in a minute. But the thing is that, look, you're not just those things. I don't want to hire where you went to school. I don't want to hire the work that you did in the past. I want to hire the person who's going to be a part of my team in the future. And so because of that, again, you're not your school or your job. This is why it's important to put in something about you. I can't tell you the number of resumes and portfolios I see where it's just like, here's where I worked, here's where I went to school, that's it. Again, you're asking a lot of that person to dig in, to find, to research, to do those things. And again, I just don't think you can assume that they're going to do that. So you need to make sure that you're really clear about what are those things. And I think that really goes into the next one, which is also about, look, make a strong first impression. Things like the top of your resume, the homepage of your portfolio, that first little blurb on LinkedIn. These are the things you need to make sure communicate who you are clearly, crisply, that it pulls people in, that there is something in there that they find intriguing, interesting, something like that, right? Like, there's one of the people I coach. He has this great line that he uses whenever he'll sort of ask, what is it you do? And he just uses these percentages, and it says 40% design, 40% design, 40% strategy, 20% barbecue. It makes you chuckle. It makes you wonder and want to find out a little bit more. It draws you in. It gives you something about his personality, and it's just a simple one-liner. But that ability of saying, hey, look, there's something more to this. I'm comfortable with who I am. These things become really important. And I think one of the things that people will do is whenever you're not necessarily comfortable with that, when you're not sure what to say, the mistake that I see a lot of people make is you'll quote somebody else. I can't tell you the number of Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, like whoever these people are, who are quoted on resumes and on portfolios. And here's the problem that I have with that. We're here to make a first impression. We're here to talk to people about who you are, about your talent, and about your creativity. So you're going to talk about your creativity by quoting someone else. That has never made any sense to me. Because the thing is, like, I get it, right? You want people to know who your heroes are, who you identify with. Great, like, save it for Pinterest and Facebook and stuff like that. This is a place where this is about you and you making an impression and you trying to say, hey, look, I'm confident. This is what it is I'm all about, but I'm going to do that by using somebody else's words, sort of undermines that. So again, I think that it really is for me, your words are enough. Your experience is enough. Make sure you use that. And now as we talk about words, the other thing for me is to make sure they are the right words. I am a designer by profession, a writer by necessity. This is why tools like Grammarly or even just basic spell check become incredibly important, because what's happening here is that you are really looking at these small details that take on this huge importance. Typos, attention to detail, different things like that suddenly come into play whenever I'm looking at these things and trying to extrapolate out, what is this person going to be like to work for me? What should I take that if this is their first introduction, if this is the thing that represents them, full of typos, it's full of mistakes, it's full of these things, what does that say about them? Because this is the time they have no client. They have as much time as they want, and this is there. So again, it's just those sort of simple things that make a really big difference. And again, to that same end, the other trend that drives me crazy with this is this trend of using application percentages. I will never understand this, because what the hell does it mean that you're 80% in Sketch or 50% in Photoshop or 100% in InVision? Compared to what? And here's the bigger problem with that. Like, I get it that you want something visual. You want something that's going to be on there to not just have it be a bunch of words, to stand out from the crowd, right? Like, good, great intention. But the problem is that you're using something that makes no sense. And so for me now, I'm looking at this and saying, this is a person who is putting something, again, on their resume, on their first introduction, that makes no sense. What is it going to be like when they work for me? And why don't they realize that this thing, while it looks pretty, just, again, doesn't do anything? And so for me, then that turns into a big red flag about, okay, again, if you're not thinking through this, if you don't see the problem that this creates, if you're not kind of looking past, oh, hey, it's cool, then that creates a really big problem. But like I said, those are the things that just sort of cut across everything. Now let's take a minute to talk about just your resume and LinkedIn in particular. Now the first one is really more for your resume, because LinkedIn structure has actually taken on this problem and will save you from yourself. But one of the things I see from a lot of people, especially when they're newer in their career, is that they lead with their education. Meaning whenever you come in there, no statement about themselves, here's where I went to school, here's where I went to work. And again, when we talked about before about, you aren't where you worked or where you went to school, this is sort of the next evolution of that. Because whenever I see that, I see the education is first. What it tells me is that you probably haven't done anything in your career or anything that basically you are prouder of than where you went to school. And again, as this is about your creativity and things like that, like, look, be proud of where you went to school. I'm not saying don't do that. But what I am saying is that shouldn't be the lead. Again, your creativity, where you are, that should be the lead. Where you've worked, the experience you have, make that second. Education should be third. Again, go and look at that LinkedIn page. Education is way down the page. Also, because in these days, a lot of companies don't really care as much about where you went to school. Apple, Facebook, all these different ones, that's not a requirement anymore. But the other thing about that I think as we get to this, is that you need to think about making sure that the information that is on there really works and is doing the most that it can. And so to this point, limit personal information. It's great that you ran a marathon, or that you did a Tough Mudder, or that you're a dog groomer, or like whatever that is, right? It's great. But again, that's for Facebook, that's for other things like that, because whenever I'm on there and that stuff I'm seeing those sort of accomplishments, I get that you want me to know you. I get that you want me to know what you're passionate about. But for me, I just read it and think, well, you probably feel like there's not enough stuff on this page, so I need to start crowding it with all these other things. And that's what I say. You need to be a person. You need to stand out. But do it in a way where the people who are reading it can see how this is going to help, how it's going to apply to their team and their company, because then that means that they're going to be much more likely to try to hire you. And as we talk about hiring, I think the other thing that I'll say is that, when we talk about building your own brand, whenever we talk about understanding who you are, it also means to be true to what that is. And I know that for a lot of recruiters, a lot of different people will tell you to customize your resume, really make it about and make it stand out for the job that you want. I understand it, right? I understand why you would do it. But the thing that I want to say with that is to do it, but to a point, because I see too many people who get lost. They turn into somebody who they aren't trying to get a job. And so for me, it is about being honest, but it's also about being honest with yourself. That again, you need to make sure that what is on there represents you. It represents what you want. And again, this is you getting the job that is going to help you, not just getting what the industry is going to give you. And I think also to that end, you need to make sure that what is on LinkedIn, what is on your resume, really reflects what you've done. Because I see things all the time where people will describe themselves as thought leaders or thought vanguards or like all these sort of like different phrases. And the thing that I always feel about that is anybody who actually was those things wouldn't use those terms. But I think it's important to really qualify those accomplishments. If you say you're a great leader, tell me why. If you say you're a great designer, tell me why, right? Like qualify it. Because again, I think this also can't be a fairy tale. Like, yes, talk about what you want to be, customize it to the next job that you want. But again, show me the track record, show me the things that are leading up to why you feel like you're ready for that job. Qualify it. Because if not, then I just start to question the reality of what this is. Like, how much truth are you really telling me? Was your role really that big? It's a fine line to walk, but you need to think about that. So lastly, let's talk a little bit about your portfolio, because I think that's the other part of it that, again, a lot of people are going to look at. Now, what you need to remember is that the biggest thing with this is that people should be looking for the way you think, not just simply the way you execute. And again, that comes to life in a couple different ways. Part of what it is don't show everything you've ever done. I know it is tempting, especially early on in your career when you don't feel like you have a lot of work, that you're going to show everything. But for me, I would rather see 2 or 3 quality pieces that are really well thought out and really well done than 20 mediocre ones just because you feel like you need to have more work. So that's the thing. Focus on quality. Tell the story of it. Do those sort of things, right? And I think that obviously leads into our next point. Tell the story of the project and your role in it. Don't just give me a bunch of screenshots. It doesn't tell me anything. And honestly, the job that's going to lead to, you probably shouldn't want. Because what it's going to mean is just somebody who just wants you to come in and execute. Just make stuff pretty. They're going to tell you what to do and not think. Those aren't the sort of jobs that we should want. Tell me, what was the problem that you got? What was the brief? What was the thinking you went through? What were some of the challenges? What went right? What went wrong? What was your role in all of that? What was the outcome of it? What was the work you produced? And then what results did it get? Whether they were financial, whether it was awards. But walk me through that process, because I think that's the thing that I'm looking for is I want to understand creativity is a team sport. Your role could have been really big or really small. I need to understand your thinking because that's what I want to hire. I want to hire the thinking. I want to hire the creativity. I don't just want to hire the execution. The world is full of people who can just make pretty pictures. What it is that I'm looking for is somebody who can actually think. And again, the last one, and it's small and it feels like it's going to be simple, but also try out your portfolio on a lot of different platforms. I can't tell you the number of times that I look at something and it doesn't work on mobile or it doesn't work on an iPad, or again, you can tell that just they haven't actually really spent the time to look at their own work. And that's again, I'm going back and I'm looking at this and saying, look, this is them at their best, being their own client, doing this sort of stuff. So why are they not looking at the details? Why are they not thinking this stuff through? And like I said, it probably isn't fair that we take such little things and put so much weight on them, but people do. So again, try this stuff out. Make sure that it works. Make sure it's putting your best foot forward. Because that's the biggest thing in all of this, right? Is to be able to make it the best, to be able to make it something that is going to work for everybody. And that's what I want to do in sort of sharing all this stuff, is to try to give you the insights, give you that, because most of the time when you don't get a job, you don't get any feedback. So this is that feedback. Go back, look at your book, look at your resume, look at your LinkedIn, think about these things, make sure you're telling this story. So that again, because I think when you do this, you're going to see you get a much better response rate. And again, you're going to be able to get that dream job that you really want. So once again, if this stuff is helpful, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell so you can get the latest videos whenever those come out. And hey, as always, stay crazy.